Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Nabiyyina Muhammad. We'd like to continue our series concerning the companions of the Messenger of Allah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this class is taken from the two books, The Illustrious Women from the First Generation and the book, The Noble Men Who Met the Messenger. These are two books in English concerning the biographies of the companions of the Messenger of Allah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So today we're going to mention some of the companions from the Jinn. Some of the companions from the Jinn. So the first issue is, are there companions from the Jinn? Ibn Hazm, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy upon him, he said, the Muslims did not differ concerning the fact that among the Jinn were some who accompanied the Messenger of Allah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and believed in him. Those Jinn followed the truth, and they deserve respect from us, and they attained a similar level of knowledge and religious commitment as the rest of the Sahabah. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with them all. So yes, those Jinn who believed in the Messenger of Allah, عليه وسلم, after meeting him and died upon that, they are also considered to be from the companions. And this is because Allah Azza wa Jal had sent a group of Jinn to go listen to the Messenger عليه وسلم recite the Quran, as is mentioned in chapter number 46, verse 29. وَإِذْ صَرَفْنَا إِلَيْكَ نَفَرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقُرْآنَ. And when we sent towards you, O Muhammad, a group of Jinn quietly listening to the Quran. In the tafsir of Ibn Abbas, may Allah Ta'ala be pleased with them for this verse, he mentioned that their number was 9, that there were 9 Jinn that Allah Ta'ala sent to listen to the recitation of the Quran by the Messenger of Allah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The second issue, what form do the Jinn appear in? And this is going to be important because we're going to mention some of the companions who they had different forms. So the Messenger of Allah, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he informed us that the Jinn are of 3 types. A type that has wings and flies through the air. A type that looks like snakes and dogs. And a type that stops for rest and then resumes its journey. So these are the types of Jinn. Now keep in mind that the Jinn can also alter their form and appearance. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, may Allah Ta'ala have mercy upon him, he elaborated upon this by saying that the Jinn can change their form and they can take the form of people and animals. He said, so Jinn can take the form of snakes, scorpions, camels, cows, goats, horses, mules, donkeys, and birds. He said an example of them taking the form of humans is when Iblis came to the tribe of Quraysh in the form of Suraqa ibn Malik. And this was right before the Battle of Badr, or during the Battle of Badr, when he encouraged the Quraysh to go out and fight the Muslims, and he was inciting them. But he came to them in the form of Suraqa ibn Malik. And Allah Ta'ala spoke about this in Surah Al-Anfal, verse number 48. إِذْ زَيَّنَ لَهُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَعْمَالَهُمْ وَقَالَ لَا غَالِبَ لَكُمُ الْيَوْمِ مِنَ النَّاسِ وَإِنِّي جَارٌ لَكُمْ. And when Shaitan beautified their actions for them, and he said, none of the people shall overcome you today. وَإِنِّي جَارٌ لَكُمْ. And indeed I am right beside you. But when he saw the group of angels descend down from the heavens to fight the Muslims, to fight alongside the Muslims, when he saw the angels come to fight alongside the Muslims, he turned back on his heels. وَقَالَ إِنِّي بَرِيءٌ مِّنْكُمْ إِنِّي أَرَى مَا لَا تَرَوْنَ إِنِّي أَخَافُ اللَّهَ وَاللَّهُ شَدِيدُ الْعِقَابِ. He said, verily I am free from you. I disassociate myself from you. Indeed, I see that which you cannot see. Indeed, I fear Allah. Allah is severe in punishment. So this is just an example of how the jinn can take the form of man when Iblis took the form of Suraka ibn Malik. Now, as a side note, which should be mentioned, who is Suraka ibn Malik? He is the man who was pursuing the Prophet عليه وسلم and Abu Bakr to collect the bounty. He was from the pagans and he was pursuing them to collect the bounty. And when they saw him, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam supplicated against him and his horse became stuck in the sand. Now, which also has to be mentioned is Suraka. He embraced Islam during the conquest of Mecca and he became from the companions. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with him. Now, so let's begin to discuss some of these jinn from the companions. Now, many of the jinn, they will give da'wah to the pagans, calling them to Islam. Many of them, you're going to find many examples in this book, the noblemen who met the messenger. One such jinn name was Malik ibn Malik al-Jinni, radiyallahu anhu. Umar ibn Khattab, he said to Ibn Abbas one day, he said, narrate a story to me that will amaze me. So Ibn Abbas, he said, Khuraym ibn Fatik, he said to me. So this is Khuraym speaking to Ibn Abbas. And Ibn Abbas is narrating the story to Umar ibn Khattab. He said, I went out seeking some camels of mine, meaning some camels went grazing. He went to recover his camels. He said, and I went until I reached a mountain of sand on the road to Medina. And this was a place that we used to hear the voices of the strong jinn. He said, and this was during the time that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had first appeared. And so he was afraid. He said, so I said, I seek refuge with the great one of this valley, meaning he was seeking refuge with the strong jinn for protection. He said, and this is what we used to say during the pre-Islamic days of ignorance. He said, all of a sudden a caller called out saying, woe be to you. Seek refuge with Allah, the owner of majesty, the one who sends down permissible and impermissible, and single out Allah alone in worship, and concern yourself not with the terror from the jinn. Khuraym, he responded, he said, O caller, what will let me know if you are upon guidance or misguidance? The jinn said, this messenger of Allah will let you know, the one who came with good, and Surah Yasin, and the surah that begins with the letter Hamim, and the surah called Mufassilat, and this of course are the surah from Qaf up until the end of the Quran. And those explain the halal and the haram. He enjoins fasting and prayer while warning against sins. Khuraym said, who are you? May Allah have mercy upon you. The jinn said, I am Malik ibn Malik. The messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent me to the jinn of Nusaybin. And I said, meaning this is Khuraym, he said, if there was someone who could look after my camels, because now he had recovered his camels. He said, if there was someone who could look after my camels, I would surely go to him and embrace Islam. So the jinn said to him, I will return your camels to your family safely, inshallah. So Khuraym said, so I took one of my camels, meaning that he left the other one with the jinn to take back to his family. And I went to the Prophet in Medina, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I reached the people while they were praying the Jum'ah prayer. And Abu Dhar came out to me and said, the Messenger of Allah asked you to enter. When he saw me, he said, meaning the Messenger of Allah, alayhi, when he saw Khuraym, he said, as for the Sheikh that promised to deliver your camels to your family, then he has indeed taken your camels to your family safe and sound. Khuraym said, I said, may Allah have mercy upon him. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, indeed, may Allah have mercy upon him. And Khuraym said, then I embraced Islam. And this story has been collected in the history of Damascus. So this is an example of the Jinn who were already Muslim giving da'wah to the pagans and them embracing Islam. And they were both from the companions. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with them. Now, some of the pagans, they had friends from amongst the Jinn. Now, we're not speaking about that companion devil that has been assigned to each individual. Keep in mind that, every individual has a personal Jinn assigned to them. This particular Jinn that's assigned to each individual is not going to embrace Islam, except for the Jinn that was assigned to the Messenger of Allah, عليه وسلم. As comes in the hadith, ما منكم من أحد إلا وقد وكل به قرينه من الجن. There is none of you except that he has been assigned a companion from amongst the Jinn. Meaning every individual has a Jinn assigned to him that calls him towards evil. قالوا وإياك يا رسول الله. They said, and even you, O Messenger of Allah, meaning you also have a Jinn that calls you to evil. He said, وَإِيَّايَ إِلَّا أَنَّ اللَّهَ أَعَانَنِي عَلَيْهِ فَأَسْلَمَ فَلَا يَأْمُرُنِي إِلَّا بِخَيْرٍ. He said, even me, except Allah assisted me against him. So he embraced Islam. So he only commands me with good. And Imam Dhahabi, he said the name of this Jinn was Abyan al-Jinni, meaning this was the particular Jinn who was assigned to the Prophet ﷺ. But we're not speaking about that. We're speaking about, so this Jinn that's assigned to you or that was assigned to everyone is not going to become Muslim. We're speaking about some of the pagans. They had friends from amongst the Jinn that they used to hang out with and do things with. Okay. One of these people were Abu Rifa'i. Now, and he also has a famous story because he said that when he was a pagan, he came to the Prophet ﷺ while he was giving the Friday sermon. And he said, O Messenger of Allah, a stranger has come to you to ask about his religion, and he does not know what the religion is. And so the Messenger of Allah, عليه وسلم, stopped the sermon and he grabbed a chair and he began to teach him what Allah had taught him. And then he returned to the pulpit and finished the sermon. This hadith is collected in Sahih Muslim, right? So this is the famous companion who came and got dawah during Friday sermon. And there's a lot of fiqh issues that come with this, showing the permissibility if a person comes wanting to know about Islam during the sermon, that the khatib can stop the sermon and give them dawah and then return to the sermon. So Abu Rifa'i, he said, during the pre-Islamic days of ignorance, I knew a Jinn. When I embraced Islam, I no longer saw him. Until one day I was standing on Mount Arafat and I heard a sound. And it was the Jinn. And he said, did you know that I embraced Islam right after you? He said, and at this moment, the Jinn began to hear the voices of the people coming. And he said, and their voices were loud. So the Jinn said to me, have the character of a lion. The strength is not within the voice. Now let's mention another one of the Jinn from the companions. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with him. His name is Rafuta ibn Samrah al-Jinni. Salman al-Farsi, he said, we were in the masjid with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on a rainy night. And we heard a voice say, "Peace be upon you, O Messenger of Allah." And we all returned the greeting of salam. Then the Messenger, عليه وسلم, said, "Who are you?" He said, "I am Urfullah. I have come to you as a Muslim." And the Prophet ﷺ said, "Welcome to you. Show us your true form." I mean, this was a jinn, and he was invisible at the time. He said, "Welcome to you, marhaban, welcome to you. Show us your true form." Salman said, "There appeared before us an elderly man who was tattered," meaning that his clothes were not kept well, and he was covered with hair. He had heavy hair that was thick on his face, and his eyes were cleft open lengthwise, meaning that his eyes would open lengthwise, not as our eyes open. And he had a mouth on his chest with long protruding fangs, and his fingers were like claws of a beast of prey. Salman said, "And the sight of him made our skin shiver." This elderly man said, "O Prophet of Allah, send with me someone to invite my people to Islam, and I will return him safe and sound." Naam. So the rest of this narration shows that the Prophet ﷺ, he sent Ali ibn Abi Talib and Salman with this jinn to invite the other jinn to Islam. And this is also mentioned in the history of Damascus. Now we're going to mention, as we said before, there's some of the jinn that have the form of snakes. And this is also mentioned about the hadith of the newlywed. His name was Amr ibn Sina. This is the newlywed, this young man that was killed by a snake after returning from the Battle of the Trench. He returned from the Battle of the Trench and found a snake on his bed. And there's a long narration that mentions about what happened. After this young man was killed, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "There are jinn in Medina who have become Muslim. When you see one of them, call them for 3 days," meaning tell them to leave for 3 days. If it appears after that, then kill it because it is a shaitan. Showing that these snakes, some of them are jinn, and some of those jinn are Muslim, and some of them are devils. Showing that, and another proof that the jinn can take the form of snakes, and some of these snakes are Muslim. So let's read about a couple of those snakes who were Muslim, who were jinn, and who were from the companions. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with them. One such companion is Amr ibn Jabir al-Jinni, and he was from the delegation of jinn who came to see and listen to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this story is narrated by Safwan ibn Mu'attal. He said, "We went out to perform Hajj, and we reached a village called Arj, and all of a sudden we saw an injured snake flipping on his side in the middle of the road. And not much time went by before the snake died. And so a man from amongst us pulled out a leather sheet, shrouded the snake, and buried it." They was going to hide. They saw an injured snake flipping on his side in the middle of the road, and the snake died, and they shrouded the snake and buried the snake. Right? It said when we reached Masjid al-Haram, an individual came to us and said, "Which one of you is the companion of Amr ibn Jabir?" We replied, "We don't know who that is." He said, "He is the jinn you buried. May Allah reward you with good. He is the last jinn to die from the 9 jinn who came to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to listen to him recite the Quran." This hadith has been collected in the Hakim. Now, another variation of this hadith in Tirmidhi states that a man said to Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, "While we were traveling, we passed by a bloody snake that had been killed, so we buried it. And when we descended to our resting place, a group of women came to us. And they said, which one of you is the companion of Amr? And we said, who is Amr? They said, the snake you buried. He was from the 9 jinn who listened to the Prophet, عليه وسلم, recite the Quran. And we said, what happened to him? They said, there were snakes from the jinn. Some were Muslim and some were pagans. And they fought and Amr was killed. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with him. And the last one we'll mention is another snake. And this snake was from the women jinn. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with her. Her name is Khurqa. And she was a woman from the jinn and a companion of the Messenger of Allah, عليه وسلم. So Rashid, he narrated that Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, and we know that he was from the leaders from the Tabi'een. He said that Umar ibn Abdul Aziz asked him, meaning asked Rashid, to go with him on a journey. And when they were coming back, they passed by a valley and they noticed a dead black snake cast upon the road. So Umar descended from his mount, Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, he got off his horse and wrapped the snake in a cloth and buried it. As they continued on their journey, a caller called out, O Khurqa, O Khurqa. And Umar and Rashid looked left and right, but they couldn't see anyone. So Umar said, may Allah guide you, O caller. If you are from those who are visible, then show yourself. If not, then tell us who is Khurqa. The caller said, I was from the 7 jinn who gave the pledge of allegiance to the Prophet عليه وسلم in this valley. The snake you encountered at such and such place, I heard the Messenger of Allah عليه salam saying to her, O Khurqa, you are going to die at such and such place, and you will be buried by the best person upon the earth during that time. Umar said, you heard that from the Messenger of Allah? So he was amazed, and they continued on their journey. Umar said to Rashid, O Rashid, don't tell anyone about this until I die. And this hadith has been authenticated by Ibn Hibban. Now, as a footnote, as we close out, Khurqa, of course, is the name of this noble companion from amongst the jinn. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with her. This is also the name of another companion from amongst the women. This is the name, Khurqa ibn Mahjan, is the black woman that used to clean the masjid of the Messenger of Allah, alayhi salatu wasalam. And she is mentioned in the well-known hadith of Ibn Abbas that when she died, they buried her and they did not inform the Prophet alayhi salam. And the next day he heard that they had buried her and they didn't wake him up. Then he went to her grave with the companions and they prayed another janazah prayer upon her. May Allah Ta'ala be pleased with all the companions of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and join us with them in the highest level of paradise. Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalam ala nabiyina Muhammad.